recent attacks further south in the Red Sea. Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in the civil war that's engulfed Yemen in recent years have repeatedly targeted commercial vessels.
The Red Sea is a hub for global trade. It allows approximately $1.8 trillion worth of goods to pass through every year, which represents around 10% of total global trade by value. This trade route is vital for the global economy, facilitating the movement of goods between major markets in Asia and Europe, with significant implications for supply chains, commerce, and economic development worldwide. If something were to stop this flow, that would spell disaster for not only the region, but also the rest of the world. But that is exactly what's happening. The US has just been forced to shut down the Red Sea near Yemen, and this will wreck the entire global economy. Join us as we explore the next biggest bottleneck in the history of global economics and what it means for us all. The Gaza war threatens to spill over into the whole region. The COVID-19 pandemic and the Ukraine war both took their toll on the global economy. And just as the world was starting to recover, a new crisis emerged. According to the International Monetary Fund, the global economy contracted by 3.5% in 2020, representing the worst peacetime downturn since the Great Depression. Similarly, the Ukraine war has disrupted trade routes, heightened energy security concerns, and led to increased military expenditures among NATO members. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development estimates that the Ukraine war could cost the global economy up to $2.2 trillion in lost output over the next 5 years. On top of this, we now have a new crisis in the Red Sea. But the story of this new global challenge stems from elsewhere. The focal point of this saga is not the Red Sea or even Yemen, but Palestine. Ever since Israel invaded Gaza in October 2023, a wave of support for Palestinians swept across various Iran-backed militant groups in the Middle East, including the Houthis in Yemen. Abdul Malik al-Houthi, the leader of the Houthis, demanded a ceasefire and an end to the Israeli blockade of the Gaza Strip. Otherwise, they threatened to carry out direct and indirect attacks on Israel and its allies indefinitely. For context, the Gaza war is a protracted part of the broader Israeli-Palestinian conflict, dating back to 1948. It has been marked by cycles of violence, military operations, and attempts at peace negotiations. The displacement of Palestinians in 1948 resulted in many settling in Gaza, which became a focal point for conflict with Israel. Over the years, Israel has engaged in multiple wars with Gaza, including the 1948 Palestine War, border conflicts from 1949 to 1956, the first occupation during the Suez Crisis, and the capture of Gaza in 1967. These conflicts have resulted in heavy casualties and suffering for both Palestinians and Israelis. In 2007, Israel imposed a blockade on Gaza, severely restricting the movement of people and goods in and out of the territory. This blockade has been highly contentious, with critics condemning it as collective punishment. The conflict escalated significantly in 2014 with a major Israeli invasion of Gaza, resulting in substantial civilian casualties and widespread destruction of infrastructure. Since then, there have been periodic flare-ups of violence. The 2023 conflict is just another chapter in this violent saga, which saw a particularly high death toll among the Palestinians. In the aftermath of clashes between the Palestinian worshippers trying to access their holy site, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the Israeli authorities, tensions escalated dramatically between Palestinian militant groups and Israel. Militant groups like Hamas responded to these clashes by launching rockets into Israel from both the Gaza Strip and Lebanon. The situation reached a peak in May 2023 when Israel conducted a series of airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. These airstrikes were met with rocket attacks from Palestinians targeting Israeli territory. The violence persisted until a ceasefire agreement was brokered on May 13, 2023, temporarily halting the hostilities. However, the conflict reignited in October 2023 when Palestinian militant groups launched a significant attack on Israel from the Gaza Strip. This surprise attack involved rocket barrages and vehicle-transported attacks targeting Israeli communities and forces, resulting in numerous casualties, including a significant number of civilians. In response, the Israeli government officially declared war. The Israeli military retaliated with a massive counteroffensive, including an extensive aerial bombardment campaign on Gaza, followed by a ground invasion. This conflict is regarded as one of the largest, most devastating, and deadliest confrontations in Gaza since the Gaza War of 2008 to 2009. It is also the deadliest conflict in Israel since the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The numbers speak for themselves. The Gaza Strip has endured immense civilian casualties as a result of the extensive Israeli bombardment. At least 30,000 Palestinians, including over 10,000 minors, have lost their lives, while over 70,000 have sustained injuries. Additionally, an alarming 10,000 individuals have been reported missing under the rubble. These figures, totaling over 110,000 casualties, represent approximately 5% of Gaza's population of 2.3 million. Even this, some experts contend, is an underestimation of the actual figures. Large-scale bombings from Israel have led to a tragically high number of casualties. Entire towns have been leveled and rendered uninhabitable by the relentless bombardment. The impact on civilian life has been profound, with numerous reports emerging of civilian infrastructure, including schools, hospitals, and residential areas, being targeted and destroyed. The indiscriminate targeting of civilian areas has resulted in the deaths of innocent bystanders, including volleyball players Hassan Zuaiter and Ibrahim Kusaya in the Jabalia refugee camp. The humanitarian situation has been dire, with human rights organizations and charitable groups reporting significant casualties among their staff and widespread displacement of civilians seeking refuge in shelters. Concerns have also been raised about the treatment of the deceased, with allegations of organ theft. Most disturbing of all, the toll on children has been particularly devastating, with a significant number of minors among the casualties. The death toll of children in Gaza has been compared to the total number killed in the Russian invasion of Ukraine, highlighting the scale of the tragedy. UNICEF and other humanitarian agencies have condemned the loss of innocent lives, emphasizing the need for urgent action to protect vulnerable populations. The Committee to Protect Journalists has also confirmed the deaths of 21 journalists, with 8 injured and 3 missing or detained. Reporters Without Borders highlighted Israel's deliberate targeting of journalists, citing incidents on October 13th that claimed the life of a reporter and injured 4 others. The grim toll continued to rise, with RSF reporting 34 journalists killed by the end of October, marking the deadliest start to a conflict for journalists in the 21st century. On November 1st, Reporters Without Borders urgently appealed to the International Criminal Court to investigate the killing of 9 journalists as potential war crimes. The death and destruction faced by the Palestinians do not sit well with the vast majority of the Muslim world, and even Western powers have raised their voice on the matter. However, no one has stepped in to alter the course of the war or force a ceasefire, except Yemen. Despite being approximately 2,300 kilometers or 1,400 miles away from the war zone, this humble Arab nation has struck the soft underbelly of Israel by disrupting the trade traffic flowing through the Red Sea. Yemeni Houthis jump into the war. Ever since 2014, the Houthi movement, an Iran-backed militant organization and a player in the Yemen civil war, has been able to exert de facto control over parts of Yemen, including the capital city of Sana'a. Their takeover was anything but easy. Following their sweeping victory, they faced the full wrath of Saudi Arabia, fully backed by the USA, but persevered. Presently, the situation with Saudi Arabia has normalized. However, Israel is now facing the brunt of their force. Houthi forces carried out a series of daring maritime attacks, targeting commercial vessels and threatening the stability of international shipping lanes. On 19 November 2023, Houthi militants made headlines when they seized control of the car transporter Galaxy Leader using a Mi-17 helicopter. The group then announced their intention to target all ships affiliated with Israeli companies or displaying the Israeli flag. This particular vessel, with its crew of 25, was redirected to the Yemeni port of Hodeidah. The situation escalated on 26 November, when the MV Central Park, an oil tanker, was seized off the coast of Yemen in the Gulf of Aden. The USS Mason, in a joint operation with CTF-151, intervened, facilitating the release of the tanker and apprehending the hijackers. Undeterred, the Houthis continued their maritime assaults, targeting vessels with anti-ship cruise missiles. On 12th of December, the Norwegian commercial ship Strinda fell victim to such an attack, resulting in a fire on board. Similarly, on 13th of December, the Ardmore Encounter faced an attack but escaped unscathed with assistance from USS Mason. Following this, the Maersk Gibraltar narrowly avoided a missile strike on 14th December. Subsequent attacks on trading vessels associated with Israel in any way underscored the volatile situation in the Red Sea. The conflict reached a critical point on 30th December when the Maersk Hangzhou came under attack, first by a land-based missile and then by Yemeni gunboats. The swift response from USS Dwight D. Eisenhower and USS Gravely resulted in the sinking of 3 hostile boats, marking the first casualties of the Red Sea crisis. This was also the first time that the U.S. forces directly engaged the Houthis in battle. However, these victories did little to change things. Houthi forces continue to endanger commercial shipping and have also threatened to escalate the conflict in the region. This prompted international concern and calls for de-escalation. The escalating conflict in the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea has witnessed a series of aggressive moves by Houthi forces, targeting commercial vessels and military assets. The MT Khalisa vessel was struck by a missile in the vicinity of Aden on 12th of January and the MV Gibraltar Eagle on 15 January. The situation escalated on 16th January when the MV Zographia was struck by a Houthi anti-ship ballistic missile, causing material damage but no injuries. The US-owned bulk carrier MV Genco Picardy faced a drone attack in the Gulf of Aden on 17th January. The conflict continued to intensify with attacks on vessels like the MV Chem Ranger on 18 January and the MV Ocean Jazz on 22 January, although the latter's attack was disputed by U.S. Naval Forces Central Command. On 24 January, the U.S.-flagged container ship Maersk Detroit narrowly avoided disaster when a Houthi missile exploded close to its starboard side. This incident prompted the suspension of sailings in the Red Sea by Maersk Line Limited. The following days saw further attacks, including the targeting of the USS Carney on 26 January and the Marlin Luanda, an oil tanker, on the same day. Following this, vessels like the Star Iris on 12 February and the MV Rubimar on 18 February became targets of Houthi aggression. The situation reached a critical point on 6 March when the MV True Confidence was struck by an anti-ship missile, resulting in casualties among the crew. The cycle of violence continued with attacks on vessels like the MV Huangpu on 24 March and the Maersk Yorktown on 9 April, further exacerbating the volatile situation in the region and highlighting the urgent need for diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the conflict. On top of this, the Houthis have also launched direct attacks on Israeli territory via ballistic missiles and projectiles, although most of these projectiles were intercepted by the Israeli and U.S. anti-air defense assets in the region. While their direct attack capabilities may be limited, the Houthis have landed a severe dent in the shipping operations in the area. This begs the question, why are the Houthis so effective? Despite efforts to intercept and deter Houthi attacks, including the deployment of naval vessels and the interception of drones and missiles, the maritime domain remains a battleground fraught with peril. Amidst the chaos, accusations of Iranian involvement surfaced, alleging Tehran's support for the Houthis through the provision of advanced weaponry and military expertise. Reports of Iranian personnel working with Hezbollah militants in Yemen further fueled concerns about the conflict's regional dimensions. However, this is nothing new or unexpected. It is common knowledge that the Houthis in Yemen, like Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon, are backed by Iran. However, of these three, the Houthis are by far the most powerful and better organized. They are anything but a ragtag band of militiamen. Instead, Iran over the years has shaped them into a conventional army with serious firepower. Their active duty personnel are in the tens of thousands, with some estimates ranging from 20,000 to 60,000. However, the Houthis themselves claim to be a much bigger fighting force and can draw in conscripts from a sizable fraction of the Yemeni population. Moreover, they have a highly effective mixture of weapons, specifically suited for their operations in the Red Sea. Their weaponry is primarily sourced from Russia, China, and Iran. Their arsenal includes surface-to-surface missiles, artillery rockets, loitering munitions, and unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs. These weapons allow the Houthis to conduct various types of operations effectively. Among their armaments are surface-to-surface missiles, capable of striking targets at considerable distances. Notably, the Tufan missile stands out with a range of 1,800 kilometers, or 1,100 miles. This missile poses a significant threat due to its extended reach and potential to target distant locations with precision. Cruise missiles form another critical component of the Houthi arsenal, often derived from the Iranian models. These missiles possess striking ranges of approximately 2,000 kilometers, or 1,200 miles. Their capability to launch precise attacks from long distances adds a layer of complexity to regional security dynamics. The Quds-2 missile is specifically designed by the Houthis to target Israel. While its reported range is around 1,350 kilometers, or 840 miles, its intended purpose underscores the militia's strategic objectives. This missile represents a direct threat to Israel and complicates efforts to mitigate cross-border tensions. The Houthi arsenal also includes advanced UAVs and loitering munitions, such as the Samad-3, Samad-4, and Wa'id drones. These unmanned systems boast impressive ranges, with the capability to travel up to 1,800 kilometers, or 1,800 miles, and beyond. The Wa'id drones, similar to Iran's Shahed 136 suicide drones, serve as formidable assets for the Houthi militia. With a range of approximately 2,500 kilometers, or 1,600 miles, these loitering munitions can surveil and engage targets at extended distances. Their advanced technology that goes into making such drones and their inexpensive nature allow Houthis to consistently strike and force any opposing army to be constantly on guard. Moreover, while the Israeli and American forces can intercept these aerial barrages, the cost of these anti-air defense munitions for both countries is far higher than what it costs to build the drones and missiles that the Houthis use. Impact of the Red Sea crisis. The Houthi attacks have significantly disrupted shipping routes to Israel, leading to a sharp reduction in commercial traffic and trade. In light of the threat, commercial vessels traveling from Asia to Israel, as well as those not destined for Israel, have been forced to reroute their journeys around Africa. Problem solved, right? Well, not exactly. While this alternative route is far safer, it does add approximately 3 weeks to the trip duration and significantly increases operational costs for shipping companies. These disruptions have also affected insurance costs for vessels navigating through the Red Sea. Israeli ships, in particular, have faced exorbitant increases in insurance premiums, with some experiencing spikes of up to 250%. Furthermore, certain vessels have encountered difficulties in obtaining any insurance coverage at all. The Red Sea crisis has also significantly impacted the Egyptian economy. The Suez Canal serves as a vital lifeline for Egypt, contributing nearly $9.4 billion annually to its economy. However, disruptions in shipping due to the ongoing conflict have compounded Egypt's existing debt crisis, exacerbating economic instability and unemployment challenges. While the USA and its local allies have assured all concerned parties of their continued presence in the region, and have even gone as far as to strike Houthi targets in Yemen, the threat is far from over. Major shipping companies don't feel like risking their vessels, cargo, and crew, regardless of the security guarantees. Notable companies such as MSC, Maersk, CMA, CGM, COSCO, Hapag-Lloyd, and Evergreen Marine Corporation have thus implemented widespread suspensions of ship traffic through the Red Sea. This suspension of shipping activities has severely impacted trade routes and supply chains, leading to significant disruptions in global maritime commerce. The suspension of shipping services has had far-reaching consequences for trade and economic activities, particularly in regions heavily reliant on maritime transport. Eilat Port, for instance, has experienced a staggering 85% drop in activity following the attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. This decline in port activity underscores the profound economic repercussions of the conflict on local industries and employment. Despite the disruptions, a notable number of freighters continue to transit through the Red Sea, predominantly comprising bulk carriers and tankers. However, container shipping companies, including some of the largest in the industry, have largely avoided the region due to security concerns. This selective avoidance reflects the nuanced impact of the conflict on different segments of the maritime industry. The suspension of Red Sea shipments has also had significant implications for humanitarian efforts and aid delivery, particularly in conflict-affected regions like Sudan. Houthi attacks have hindered the timely delivery of vital aid shipments, exacerbating humanitarian crises and prolonging the suffering of vulnerable populations. In response to these disruptions, the UN Security Council passed Resolution 2722 on January 10, 2024, condemning Houthi attacks. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi emphasized Egypt's sovereignty and its ability to protect itself, while Israel, alarmed by threats to maritime shipping, sought Western allies' assistance in the matter. Abdul Malik al-Houthi, the leader of the eponymous faction, stated that the group's operations were aimed at supporting Palestinians. He said that the group would only stop if Israel stopped disrupting the delivery of aid to Gaza and agreed on a ceasefire. Houthi Minister of Defense Mohammed al-Atifi even expressed readiness for a prolonged confrontation. The U.S., not taking the threat lightly anymore, formed a multilateral naval task force under Operation Prosperity Guardian to protect commercial vessels in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and Gulf of Aden. France, Italy, and India deployed independent naval patrols to enhance maritime security. However, pro-Palestinian protests continue to rage on all over the world, demanding that the USA show a similar level of dedication towards a ceasefire, aid delivery to the Palestinians, and ensure justice to Palestine by recognizing it as a state. But the question remains, are fears of supply chain disruption well-founded? Will the world economy really collapse if this one rowdy were to be disrupted? Well, yes. And we have past data to show as such, past global supply issues due to Suez Canal disruptions. In 1956, Egypt, under the leadership of President Gamal Abdel Nasser, nationalized the Suez Canal, sparking what was later dubbed the Suez Crisis. This move aimed to secure funding for the construction of the Aswan Dam by using revenue from the canal. However, it escalated tensions with the United Kingdom and the United States, leading to their withdrawal of financial support for the dam project. In response to Egypt's nationalization of the canal, Britain, France, and Israel orchestrated a military intervention. Israel invaded the Sinai Peninsula, prompting Egypt to engage militarily, which provided a pretext for the Anglo-French partnership to intervene under the guise of restoring stability in the region and regaining control of the canal. Amidst the escalating conflict, Canadian Secretary of State for External Affairs, Lester B. Pearson, proposed the creation of the first United Nations peacekeeping force to ensure access to the canal for all parties involved and facilitate an Israeli withdrawal from the Sinai Peninsula. Pearson's peacekeeping resolution garnered majority support at the United Nations, compelling Britain to call for a ceasefire and agree to withdraw its troops from the region. The aftermath of the Suez Crisis saw significant damage to the canal and the sinking of several ships under Egyptian orders, leading to its closure until April 1957. With assistance from the United Nations, the canal was eventually cleared, and a UN peacekeeping force was established to maintain its free navigability and ensure peace. The closure of the Suez Canal during the Suez Crisis had far-reaching implications for international trade, disrupting vital maritime routes and causing economic turmoil. It underscored the strategic importance of the canal as a key artery for global commerce, highlighting the need for diplomatic solutions to prevent future conflicts and ensure the uninterrupted flow of maritime trade. However, the Suez Canal was shut down yet again during the 1967 Six-Day War. It remained as such for 8 years and was eventually opened by Egypt after the Yom Kippur War of 1973. This closure severely disrupted global trade and caused substantial economic losses. Maritime traffic had to divert around the Cape of Good Hope, significantly increasing transit times and costs for shipping companies. The longer route added thousands of miles to voyages, leading to delays in delivery times and increased expenses for fuel and maintenance. The estimated loss during the 8 years of closure is substantial, with some economists estimating it to be in the billions of dollars. The closure disrupted the flow of goods between Europe and Asia, impacting industries reliant on timely deliveries, such as manufacturing, agriculture, and retail. The eventual reopening of the Suez Canal in 1975 allowed for the resumption of maritime traffic through the canal, restoring a crucial artery of international commerce and facilitating the movement of goods between Europe and Asia. Years later, in March 2021, another incident rocked international trade to the core when the Ever Given, a colossal container ship, became wedged in the Suez Canal. After 6 days of intense efforts to dislodge the vessel, excavation crews finally succeeded, allowing the Ever Given to sail again. However, the ship's departure from Egyptian waters in July left behind disrupted supply chains and unanswered questions about the resilience of maritime trade. Following its release, the Ever Given underwent repairs in a Chinese port to address the damage sustained during the incident. Months later, it embarked on a journey to Rotterdam, carrying not only its crew but also thousands of containers laden with goods. Concerns lingered about the condition of perishable cargo, which had been stranded for months. Upon arrival at European ports, many goods were deemed unusable after extended periods at sea. Complicating matters further, Ever Given's owner declared a contingency situation, imposing fees on customers seeking to retrieve their goods. While non-perishable items could still be salvaged, perishable goods faced the prospect of being auctioned off or discarded. The whole incident fueled concerns about the vulnerability of ultra-large container vessels and the concentration of critical supply chains. The exponential growth in global trade has led to an increased reliance on these mammoth ships, amplifying the potential impact of disruptions. Maritime analysts warn of the dangers posed by singular events, such as a ship getting stuck or deliberate acts of sabotage targeting such container ships. The total loss, due to the Ever Given incident, was estimated to be up to $10 billion per day in disrupted trade. Approximately 400 ships were stranded or delayed during the 6 days the canal was blocked. It took about a week to clear the backlog of ships and resume normal traffic flow through the Suez Canal. The lessons from Ever Given's ordeal underscore the need for greater resilience in global supply chains and heightened awareness of vulnerabilities in maritime trade. Thus, such attacks from the Houthis can cause serious damage in the long term unless the matter is addressed politically. Future of global trade. The US and the UK were quick to respond militarily to the Houthis, but experts suggest that these military strikes may not deter the Houthis, who have demonstrated resilience in the face of previous confrontations. The group's long-standing history of guerrilla warfare and its ability to adapt to blockade conditions indicate that airstrikes alone are unlikely to cripple them. The domestic political landscape in Yemen also plays a significant role in the Houthis' resilience. Despite facing criticism for their oppressive tactics, the group maintains control over key regions, including the capital, Sana'a. Dissent against their rule has been met with harsh repression. Furthermore, the Houthis' actions resonate with broader regional sentiments regarding Israel's conflict in Gaza and Western policies in the Middle East. By framing their attacks as resistance against perceived injustices, the group has garnered support and legitimacy among certain segments of the population. This narrative also undermines domestic opposition and bolsters recruitment efforts. What does this mean? Well, the only way to stop the Houthis is through negotiations, unless the Western powers are willing to enter yet another ill-fated, protracted war. As the international community grapples with the complex dynamics at play, the Houthis' actions underscore the fragility of maritime security and the challenges of addressing geopolitical conflicts in the Middle East. These disturbances have reverberated across continents, impacting the flow of goods and driving up container spot rates and insurance costs. The consequences are clear: rising consumer prices for a wide array of products. There is a clear link between geopolitical tensions and crude oil prices, which in turn influence retail sectors worldwide. Deliberate turmoil in key maritime routes aims to manipulate crude oil prices, thereby impacting global retail. The economic implications of disruptions in critical maritime routes weigh heavily on the retail sector. Industries like manufacturing, aerospace, and fashion, heavily reliant on the Asia-Europe trade lane, are the most sensitive in the matter. The disruptions in the Red Sea crisis will ripple through these industries, causing inflation, supply chain whiplash, and significant overproduction of key goods. The spike in shipping costs poses a substantial threat to global supply chains as well. A decline in container vessels navigating through the Red Sea, as we see today, hints at enduring repercussions on global trade patterns. Moreover, the Suez Canal may no longer be a viable route for shipping companies. The fragility of global supply chains necessitates deeper insights into supply networks to navigate regulatory compliance and risk mitigation effectively. The need for diversified supply chains, real-time tracking technologies, and contingency plans to manage geopolitical risks effectively is thus paramount. But in the short term, the damage is already done. While the retail sector grapples with immediate disruptions, there's a call for long-term strategic adjustments. Companies must reassess dependency on vulnerable trade lanes, consider alternative routes, and diversify suppliers. Collaboration between the public and private sectors is essential to safeguard global trade routes and ensure continuity in commerce. In any case, the crisis in the Red Sea can cause a significant loss to economies worldwide. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.